AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me after she burned every bridge in the family. I am currently at odds with nearly my entire family over an issue involving my younger sister, Sarah. To give you some context, Sarah has always been the type of person who gravitates towards chaos. Growing up, she was the rebellious one, sneaking out, partying, and testing every boundary imaginable. Our parents, for better or worse, indulged her behavior, often brushing off her antics as teens being teens. Meanwhile, I was the responsible one, always picking up the pieces and admittedly resenting how often I had to be the bigger person. As adults, our lives couldn't be more different. I work as a project manager in a tech company, live in a small but lovely condo, and have a calm, stable life. Sarah, on the other hand, has been bouncing from one bad decision to the next. She's had a series of toxic relationships, can't hold down a job, and has a knack for alienating everyone around her. About 3 years ago, she borrowed $5,000 from our parents to start fresh. She promised to use the money to move to a new city, get her own place, and find a stable job. Instead, she blew it on a new boyfriend and their whirlwind trip to Mexico. When she returned, broke and jobless, my parents were understandably furious, but Sarah somehow managed to charm her way back into their good graces. That's the thing about her. She has this ability to convince people that this time will be different. Fast forward to 6 months ago, when Sarah hit rock bottom again. She had been living with our parents, rent-free, of course, when she got into a massive fight with them over her refusal to get a job. Apparently, my mom found out she had been secretly selling family heirlooms to fund her lifestyle. My mom was devastated, and my dad finally told Sarah she had to leave. Sarah then turned to our older brother, Mark, and his wife. They reluctantly let her stay in their guest room under strict conditions. She had to actively look for work and respect their household rules. Predictably, that didn't last long. Sarah would stay out all night, leave messes everywhere, and once even borrowed Mark's credit card without asking to buy concert tickets. After 3 months of this, they asked her to leave. Cue Sarah showing up at my door. She looked exhausted and desperate, with just a backpack and a tearful story about how everyone had turned their backs on her. She begged me to let her stay for just a little while until she could get back on her feet. She promised she'd follow my rules, get a job, and contribute to household expenses. She even swore she'd go to therapy. Here's the thing. I didn't believe her. Sarah has made these promises so many times before, only to break them. Letting her into my home felt like inviting chaos into my life. Still, I felt guilty turning her away. I told her I'd think about it and let her stay the night on my couch while I made up my mind. The next day, I laid out clear terms if she wanted to stay. She had to get a job within a month, contribute to expenses, and attend therapy. I also told her that any violation of my trust, stealing, lying, or general disrespect, would mean she'd have to leave immediately. She agreed enthusiastically, saying this was exactly what she needed. For the first 2 weeks, things seemed fine. Sarah found a part-time job at a local cafe and even went to one therapy session, or so she claimed. But soon her old patterns started emerging. She'd come home late, bringing loud, rowdy friends with her despite my no-guests rule. She borrowed money from me for groceries, but spent it on Uber Eats and cigarettes. One night, I caught her trying to sneak one of my necklaces out of the house, presumably to pawn it. When I confronted her, she broke down, crying about how hard her life had been, and how no one understood her struggles. She accused me of being judgmental and cold, saying I didn't care about family. I told her she had 48 hours to find somewhere else to stay. That's when the family backlash started. Sarah called our parents, sobbing about how I was throwing her out onto the street. My mom called me, furious, saying I should be ashamed of myself for abandoning my own sister. My dad chimed in, accusing me of being too rigid and not giving her a chance. Mark and his wife were more sympathetic, but they also suggested I give her one more chance to make things right. I refused. I told them all that Sarah's behavior wasn't just a series of bad choices, it was a pattern of manipulation and entitlement. I'd spent years cleaning up her messes, and I wasn't willing to set myself on fire to keep her warm anymore. Sarah eventually left, though I don't know where she went. I've been getting guilt-tripped by my parents ever since, with my mom calling me heartless and my dad saying I'm tearing the family apart. Even some extended family members have weighed in, saying things like, but she's your sister, and family comes first. The thing is, I don't feel guilty. Not really. I've spent years trying to help Sarah, only to be taken advantage of every single time. At what point do I get to say enough is enough? So, Reddit, AETA for refusing to let my sister stay with me after everything she's done? Update 2 months later. Since posting this, a lot has happened. First, Sarah ended up moving in with a distant cousin who's even more of a pushover than I am. Unsurprisingly, that arrangement didn't last long. From what I've heard, she's currently couch surfing with friends. My parents are still angry with me, though their frustration seems to have shifted towards Sarah's behavior now that the dust has settled. As for me, I've been focusing on my own mental health. I started seeing a therapist to unpack years of resentment and guilt surrounding my family dynamics. Setting boundaries with Sarah has been one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it's also been incredibly freeing. Some family members still think I'm the villain in this story, but others have reached out to tell me they understand and even admire my decision. Mark, in particular, has been supportive, saying he wishes he'd stood his ground sooner. I've realized that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. Sarah's problems aren't mine to fix, and enabling her only prolongs the cycle. I hope she finds her way someday, but for now, I'm at peace with my choice.